This tutorial will demonstrate how to create and associate calibrations to your images in Image Pro Premiere 9.1 and higher. This new version has added easy-to-use features for setting up the relationship between image pixels and actual units of measure. This is by far the most important step of your application setup. We'll look at two different examples, one for the offline versions of Image Pro Premiere, and secondly, for the versions that include digital camera capture. Starting with the offline version, it's important to note that if you open an image, such as this one, that already contains a spatial calibration, that spatial calibration will be read by Image Pro Premiere. The first place to look to ensure a spatial calibration has been correctly read by Image Pro Premiere is this notification bar at the bottom. You'll see here that our spatial calibration is listed, and if we draw any measurements or place a spatial calibration marker on this image, it will be correctly labeled. Here in my calibration group, on my Capture tab, or in offline versions called the Home tab, you see that I have a toggle marker option. By clicking the toggle marker option, I'm able to display a calibration marker which is correctly calibrated based upon the spatial calibration brought in with this image. Now let's say I don't have a calibration that was saved with the image. The first thing I would want to do is have some point of reference. In this case, I have a micrometer slide that I know the distance between my lines. In some cases, you may have an image that already contains a point of reference, some type of marker on the image giving you a reference of how many units equals how many pixels. If I want to create a new calibration for an image, the first step is to have this reference. With this reference, I have three different options for creating a calibration. The first one is my auto calibrate function. By using the wizard, I can open my auto calibrate, follow the instructions, give my calibration a special name that denotes which lens, magnification, or camera I'm using to denote this spatial calibration from other spatial calibrations. The next thing is to choose my units, and you notice that we have many different units to choose from. Next, you'll want to choose the distance between the lines, and with the Auto Calibrate wizard, you want to choose the smallest increment between the lines on your screen. In this case, we have 20 micron spaces between our lines. Next, we're presented with the option of a system calibration versus a reference calibration. The simplest way to describe system and reference is that a reference calibration describes all calibrations created by Image Pro Premiere. If you want to have a spatial calibration that is only created once and then discarded, uncheck the reference calibration. Otherwise, leave this checked to keep it in your list. The system calibration is simply a calibration that is applied to images captured by a camera. It's not applied to those opened in the software, so this really is only capture calibrations. When I'm finished, I hit the OK button. You'll see some lines go across the screen as it begins to auto-find all of my lines. It will present me with a line profile that has found all of my peaks and valleys and give me a grid to check. Automatically, a spatial calibration marker is placed at the bottom of my image. These spatial calibration markers are interactive. You can click on them and move them to the location that you desire. You can also move the size and shape. And if you'd like to change the font or any other aspects of the spatial calibration marker, simply double-click to see the spatial calibration options. To see where my calibration has been placed, I can always go to the spatial calibration options. In this drop-down, my first option opens a dialog which gives me many different options to choose from. In here, we see all the calibrations that have been created as reference calibrations. Small icons denote the type of calibrations that have been created as well. The star shows all my reference calibrations, and the globe shows my system calibration, the one that will be applied when I capture with a camera. In this case, we created auto calibration. If I want to change anything about the units, the abbreviation, pixels per unit, or advanced options for conversion factors, aspect ratios, and offsets, I can do all that here. Similarly, I can choose a calibration and delete it if I don't need it anymore. I'll choose to turn off this calibration for this image and apply that. And now you notice my image has turned back to pixels. And my status bar at the bottom displays pixels instead of my spatial calibration. When this is done, I'm able to choose a calibration that does not have any open images associated with it and delete that calibration. Now we'll go back to our calibration group and choose the second option. The second option is the quick calibration. In this option, you simply draw a reference line and then tell it how long it is. By choosing this option, I'm given a crosshair, and I'm also given a local zoom on the right-hand side to see more clearly where my cursor is. You always want to go from the left-hand side or the right-hand side to the corresponding left or right-hand side of a line. If I want to lock my line to be straight, I can hold down the Shift key, and I would lock at varying degrees. I'll line up the edge of my line, and I'll let go. Now I'm presented with a similar dialog to give my calibration a name, units, and feature size. Again, my system and reference calibrations, and when I'm happy, I can hit OK. Now the calibration is applied to my image, and we see at the bottom that my image has had the calibration applied accordingly. The last option for creating calibrations is again in my calibration group. Choosing the options drop-down, my last option is to show a predictive calibration. This brings up an easy-to-use wizard for selecting my camera manufacturer, model, pixel size, sensor, and my lenses. With all this chosen correctly, I'm able to choose my units, click OK, and this will create a calibration based upon all the settings. In my next example, I'll use a brand new tool in Image Pro Premiere 9.1 and higher. This is the Hardware Configuration Wizard. The Hardware Configuration Wizard is available in all versions that contain digital capture. This wizard will walk you through a very similar tool that will allow you to set up your camera. In this case, I have my capture simulation, my lens setup, calibration methods, and a summary to ensure everything is correct. After selecting my cameras in my Camera tab, I'll come to Lenses, and I'm presented with the option to choose from generic lenses or create my own. To create my own, look at the lens library at the bottom. The list may be collapsed, so you may need to expand it. Look through the list and find the exact manufacturer, magnification, and lens type that fits your microscope. Select your lens on the left-hand side by checking the checkbox, and you'll notice as you do this, the list of lenses populates with your favorite lenses. Be sure to gather the lens names that you use and populate your list so that you can have easy access to them at all times. Choose the lens, ensure your magnification, refractive index, numerical aperture, and part numbers are all correct. Choose a color that will be used for the lens icon to denote which lens you're about to choose. And if you already have calibrations set up for this, you can choose them at this time. If you don't have calibrations already set up for this lens, that will be the next step in this wizard. I'll hit Next, and now choose my calibration method. We offer 3 different methods in the calibration wizard. The first one is to use a stage micrometer, very similar to what we just showed a second ago. You'll be presented with the option to launch a live window, measure your stage micrometer, or open an image that will allow you to measure just as we did previously. The next option is to estimate the camera using the lens and camera data. Again, very similar to our previous options, where we estimate based upon the type of lens you have, the type of pixel size, optical coupler, zoom, calibration unit, and then creating this for either one or multiple lenses and cameras. My last calibration method is going to be to capture and calibrate using an object of known size. This again is a very straightforward method where you choose the lens that you want to calibrate, turn on preview, as you see in the background automatically launched, click the stop preview to capture an image, and then click the next to then have options for snapping to a reference object or manually measuring the object as we did previously. Again, you'll want to enter the object size in pixels, enter the size of the reference object in your calibrated units, and then click Next to again review this or apply it to multiple lenses or multiple cameras. When you've finished, your Summary tab will then display how many cameras, how many lenses, and how many calibrations have been defined. Much like our previous options, if I go to my calibration dropdown, I'm able to look in the options at all the calibrations that have been created. In my simulation test, you can see that I created many different estimates based upon the lenses that we had. For your individual cameras and lenses, this will be specific to the name that you have created, so each of these will make sense to you. If you're only working with images that have been previously captured and calibrations are supplied with the image, there's no need to use the optical characteristics group. This group can be turned off in the main options using the File menu. However, if you do have lenses and would like to capture images directly into Image Pro Premiere, the best thing to do is set up your lenses and have each one of them linked to a spatial calibration. This is a very easy task which can be accomplished by choosing the gear, going into your lens setup, choosing the lens that you previously selected from our lens library, and then choosing your calibration that's either been created through the wizard or you have created manually by drawing on a reference object. Choose the lens from the lens list, and then find your calibration in the list of calibrations that have been previously created either using our wizard or using a reference object. If you have any further questions about this or any other tools, please contact your Media Cybernetics reseller or local representative.